Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and this morning we're going to be having a look at a very interesting article that The Athletic have uploaded this morning, which essentially has a few key quotes from different scouts within the Premier League or top flight football, speaking about Manchester United's issues. And I think there's three main sets of quotes which I wanted to go through and just quickly discuss. So if you haven't looked at the article already, it will be in the description below. And yeah, it's a really interesting read. But there's three different topics, like I said. And the first kind of focuses on what we've all spoken about, the midfield issues at Old Trafford this season. It was quite easy to see that they were better with the ball than without. With their pressing, if they're not able to win the ball up high in the first couple of passes, they would be quite passive and not as comfortable in the low or medium block. We knew that if we were patient and we were good on the ball, that we could have a good amount of possession. The thing that we were surprised by most, actually, was how much time and space there were that we were able to get at Old Trafford, that we were able to get out of the pressure so much. We noticed when you would play with two number sixes, they would use their number 10 and one of their number sixes to connect with the two players, so they were quite man orientated on those two players. That's what creates the big gap in United's midfield, that they only have one number 6 between the lines. We wanted to overload that area because what we noticed was that there were big gaps in there. If they wanted to be open, we could go straight in. So let's delve into that set of quotes quickly. So we've all we all know about the big midfield problem at Manchester United. Whether you put Casemiro in there, whether you put Mainu there, whether Mount comes into the midfield, although we haven't seen that much, whether it's Amrabat, Hannibal Mejbri at the start of the season, you could stick bloody Paul Scholes in there, or Roy Keane, and I'm pretty sure the midfield would still look quite similar because, like this analyst has explained and like other people have suggested, this is almost a purposeful thing that Ten Hag is trying to do, and he wants the midfield to step up onto those two number 6s that the opposition have. And when one of the holding midfielders, Casemiro or Mainu usually, steps up into that space, it leaves the other one with a huge amount of kind of space to fill. And whilst we sometimes invert Diego Dallo, or the defence doesn't really step up as much as it should, but that's not usually out of possession when Dallo goes in there. So it's not as secure in those positions. And yeah, I mean, we all knew that this was a massive problem, but it is interesting to see what kind of a proper analyst makes of the situation, that they're actually trying to exploit this as expected. Secondly, it's an interesting set of quotes about United's press and the biggest problem with United's press. So an analyst from a top level club said that when teams overloaded central areas against United, their back four would get so narrow, so when we played around the winger and the first line of the press, the fullbacks would have such a long distance into pressing our fullbacks that they wouldn't really be able to manage. Every time we'd bypass the winger, they would have to drop, and then they would get passive, and then they would get more and more space with the ball higher up the pitch. You have the front part of this team that's trying to implement this much more aggressive pressing system, and you can be that aggressive. But if you're going to be that aggressive, it needs to be team-wide. You can't say, actually, our centre-backs are not really good at this, so we're just going to let them hang back. So let's dissect that one quickly. So, I mean, I've mentioned it in previous videos. In certain games, it's been really stark that United's press is very vulnerable when a team realises that either a goalkeeper or a centre-back can clip the ball out past one of our wingers who is usually trying to do two jobs, and then because our fullback and our back line are so far back that they're not ready to press that fullback when he receives, and so they can just run for days usually. I can't think of the game exactly where it was, but it was very stark in a few weeks ago, where the goalkeeper just kept on pinging passes over Anthony or Garnacho, and the fullback just had a field day because he had so much space to run into. And I think we all agree with that last part as well. It still feels like Ten Hag or the players are not fully going into one style of play. It feels like we're really trying to press hard going forward, but the defensive line just isn't really pressing high enough. The midfield's not good enough set in terms of the way they're set up, and it all just leads to United not playing good football. So finally, the last bulk of quotes I wanted to speak about is this kind of the way that United counter-attack and their transition. Of course, at the start of the season, we always heard Ten Hag, he wants United to be one of the best transitional teams in Europe. But I'll speak on a bit more on that after these quotes. So another analyst said, "We knew that we couldn't match them over big areas. That would open up spaces for them. The biggest difference is that between Manchester United and Liverpool this is, and the way that Klopp plays this style of play. The biggest difference is that Liverpool know how to artificially create that chaos in a safe environment. Watch Trent get the ball in a wider area, and Liverpool's rest defence in the centre tightens up. He plays an early cross, and then Liverpool can counter-press on that. It's a low percentage pass. You're not expecting to win it necessarily, but you're creating the second ball. You're creating what's essentially an artificial transition. You've minimised the risks because you've dictated when it's going to happen." Now, this is a really interesting point because United obviously have some players who are very good on the transition, but like the analyst mentions, United don't do it in a safe way. They quite usually are playing basketball, and that creates difficulties for the attackers because they're doing so much long distance running, difficulties for the midfielders because they're stranded in the middle not really knowing what's going on, and the defence has a lot of quick transitions to defend against, and it doesn't really work for United. Now, because Liverpool, of course, thankfully they've fallen off in the title race, but like it mentions, they do it in a safe environment where if they make a risky pass, if they make a kind of a risky run, they are usually prepared in a way that their players can pounce onto the second ball and create that kind of artificial transition like it was mentioned. So it's an interesting topic. It was quite a detailed article. There's more quotes, especially from when United played Newport. Their analyst spoke to The Athletic in quite good detail about that game and how they prepared for United. So I'd recommend checking that out in the description below. A lot of those feel like it validates a lot of what United fans have been worried about this season. And it's interesting to see that from a professional point of view, there are the same worries, the same points being brought up. So let me know what you thought of those comments in the comments section below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and if you enjoyed this video, we'd appreciate it if you hit the like button below. And I'll see you in the next one.